Are you looking at buying or selling in Taylor, Texas, and you're still using last year's market strategies or mindset? Let's talk through that. Okay, you could be making a very expensive mistake, and I want to help you hang on to your dollars. I'm seeing buyers overpay and sellers overprice because they didn't realize how quietly our market has shifted. If you're trying to figure out whether now is the best time to buy, sell, or maybe you should hold off, give me a call or a text at 512-269-7907 and let me help you navigate the market, especially from a local's perspective. Okay, I'm happy to help you think strategically as you're setting your goals and making your decisions. Now, I want to start off by saying this. Taylor's not crashing, okay? We have the largest construction site in the United States right here on the outskirts of town. We're not crashing. We're definitely growing. But the pace at which we're growing and changing has shifted compared to years past. So let's go ahead and unpack that. People don't understand that they could be losing money or missing opportunities. Now, we're going to talk through both the buyer and seller side of this and how that this has changed. Here's the deal. Inventory is up compared to last year. We have several options for buyers and renters to pick from, okay? What does that mean for buyers and sellers? So here's the deal. Buyers have more options in terms of a residential setting. This also applies to farm and ranch, but let's focus on residential to start with. Buyers can walk into a neighborhood and there is at least 4 or 5 options, and it may even have the exact same floor plan, okay? The only difference might be the flooring in the house, okay? But here's the deal. When you're looking from a buyer's perspective, that's to your advantage because then you can be a little more picky about things, all right? But the thing is when you're a seller and you're having to figure out, how do I compete against 3 other houses that are the exact same? We have to be very strategic, okay? Not only that, in terms of buyers have so many more options, the days on market has stretched. Okay, so here in our area, the average shifted from about 56 to now we're sitting at like 76. Okay, that's on average how it has stretched from a year or a year and a half ago. Farm and ranch, you ask? Farm and ranch on average for the days on market is 270 plus. 270 days on average for farm and ranch in our area of Taylor, Copeland, and Thrall. Okay, so that's going to take some patience, right? So when we know this data and this information, it helps us to think strategically and help us as professionals prepare you as buyers and sellers, especially for this market. So let's take a look at some options here, like subdivision versus farm and ranch versus some older homes, okay? So I recently worked with a buyer who assumed that, they had their pre-approval, they're ready to go, they're going to have to hit the market running, and they're going to have to rush to get in, and oh my gosh, we got to get an offer submitted, and da-da-da. The thing is you don't have to feel quite so rushed when the market is more in the favor of the buyers, all right? Now, when you are a buyer, the biggest thing that's going to help you have buying power is going to be your pre-approval. Once you've got that, you have lots of options to pick from. And if you want to be a little more selective about whether or not that fridge stays in that house, we can negotiate that on your behalf. Now, because there's so many options, you get to make requests. It's not always granted, but you can make requests about a fridge or a washer and a dryer or maybe a projector that's in an entertainment room, okay? These are some of the things that you can leverage on your behalf. Now, when you're a seller, we have to be prepared to leverage some of those things. You have to be prepared that if somebody walks in and wants to put an offer in and wants your fridge to stay, you're going to have to be prepared for what that's going to look like. Okay, so if you are a buyer and you're currently in a rental and you don't have something else to sell, oh my goodness, you are in a prime position, okay? You have so many options at your fingertips, not to mention the options of competitive financing through some of our new builds. So if residential is something you're considering, I strongly suggest that you just weigh your options long term, because you might say, oh, the interest rates are 6 and 7%. Well, if you're looking at new builds, I've seen people get 4.85 with a 2-1 buy down. That's offered in a couple of different locations with an FHA-based product. So there's lower than 6% out there. You just got to play your cards right, all right? Now, let's flip it over to the farm and ranch side. If you're a buyer in that setting, it may not be a fridge that you're wanting to stay. Maybe it's some farm implements or equipment in the barn. Or maybe you're wanting a credit to help offset having to extend the driveway or add something in addition to the parking or whatever. You can make those requests, and it is now a lot more common to negotiate some of those things in the buying and selling of a property. In the past, when it was a seller's market, it would have been laughed at. It would have been like, no, you're not going to ask me to do more and buy the house. So make sure you consider those things and ask questions. Be curious, because now is the time as a buyer that you can make a request. The answer is always no if you don't ask, right? Let's take a look at the selling side of things. So we talked about the need to be flexible and helping set your listing apart. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of is buyer concessions. Buyer concessions, I had a client tell me one time that he said it sounds like voodoo magic. So buyer concessions can easily be broken down, and I could probably do an entire video just on buyer concessions. But basically, it's just taking part of what you're financing and putting it in a different category to help offset, whether it's closing costs, helping buy down your rate, or possibly using it as a credit towards a repair, things like that. So as a seller, we need to be prepared to possibly leverage that, offering some buyer concessions as a way to kind of show, hey, we are aware that maybe the flooring is a little worn. We're aware that it might need some paint, but we're offering a credit to help offset that. And then that makes your listing look very appealing compared to another one that may already have a floor upgrade. So those are some things to consider. So whenever we have something that is priced right, this matters more than ever. Now, if you're priced the same as everyone else, you're going to miss out, right? Because we have so many houses available or so many properties available. Not to mention marketing and partnering with an agent who does strategic marketing or has a strategic marketing plan is imperative, okay? Because if you just list your property on MLS, you're missing out on a lot. We're seeing an additional up to 75% exposure when we're adding the strategic marketing plans to our listings. That includes like making sure that it's added to social media, not just once, but there's a plan for pushing it out on all platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikToks, LinkedIn, having all the information that's pushed out. In addition to that, you've got groups, you've got print ads, and the marketing that takes place from person to person or in certain circles. So all of that has to be a part of the strategic plan, because that's what helps sets your listing apart from the 4 or 5 in the area that might be very similar. And we haven't even touched on open houses, right? So that's just what we do to prepare before we even get to when the listing is pushed out, or maybe within the first week. So the market reward strategy, okay, not speed in this type of a market. So if you're trying to figure out whether now is your time to buy, sell, or hold off, then give me a call or send me a text at 512-269-7907. You can also take a look at the links in the description. You can find me and reach me on all kinds of platforms. You know it, I'm there. I'm always happy to help you think strategically.